Hey, Isabella. So, today we're gonna dive into something that's really misunderstood, I think. It's called reactive abuse.
Oh, Sophia, I've heard that term, but I'm not entirely sure I grasp it? Like, what does it actually mean to reactively abuse someone? It sounds so contradictory.
Right? It totally does. The thing is, it's not really abuse in the genuine sense. Picture this. It's what happens when someone who's been, subjected to ongoing abuse, emotional, verbal, sometimes physical, finally snaps. They've been pushed and pushed and pushed to their absolute breaking point, and then they react aggressively or emotionally towards their abuser. And then the abuser immediately uses that reaction to flip the script, right? To say, see, you're the problem. You're the abusive one. Wow. So it's like a defense mechanism that gets weaponized against them? That's really insidious. Absolutely. It's considered a form of self-defense or, a trauma response. It lacks that core intent to control or harm that defines genuine abuse. The victim isn't trying to dominate. They're reacting to being dominated. And when we talk about snapping, it's not a character flaw at all, Isabella. It's a physiological and psychological response. Think about it. Sustained mistreatment, constant manipulation. It corners someone, makes them feel powerless, completely overwhelmed. This constant provocation just dysregulates the nervous system.
So it's the body and mind going into fight or flight mode because they've been under so much pressure for so long?
Precisely. It triggers that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. And when all other attempts to establish safety have failed, sometimes an aggressive response emerges. It's an instinctive protective mechanism. It's not a choice, It's a survival mechanism kicking in.
That makes so much sense. It's like you're just trying to survive, and then that reaction gets used against you. It's truly heartbreaking to think about.
It is. And the abusers, they deliberately provoke these reactions. It's a strategy to maintain power and control. They'll criticize repeatedly, manipulate, violate boundaries, gaslight you until you doubt your own reality, bait you into arguments, then belittle your reaction, or ignore you, threaten you, anything to provoke that response.
So how does this whole dynamic, Sophia, play out as a cycle? Because abuse always seems to come in these really difficult cycles, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, Isabella. And reactive abuse is no different. It follows a pretty predictable pattern, actually. First, there's the provocation. The abuser starts criticizing, manipulating, pushing the victim's boundaries again and again. It's relentless.
Okay, so provocation is the start. What comes next? Next is the reaction. The victim, having been pushed way past their limit, finally reacts. This could be yelling, crying, saying harsh things, or even physically lashing out in a moment of extreme stress. These reactions are often really out of character for them, totally not who they usually are.
Right. So then the abuser uses that, see, you're the problem.
Exactly. That's the blame stage. The abuser immediately points to the victim's reaction and labels them as the problem, or even the abuser. They use gaslighting to completely twist the situation, making the victim feel confused, ashamed, and questioning everything. And then, Isabella, the victim feels this immense confusion and shame, wondering if they really are abusive. It just reinforces the whole dreadful cycle.
It sounds incredibly damaging, Sophia, but it also sounds like it could be really hard for someone to differentiate between their reactive abuse and what the abuser is doing. How can you tell the difference, really? That's a fantastic question, and it's absolutely crucial, to distinguish. The biggest difference is intent and power dynamics. Real abuse, it's a deliberate pattern of behavior. It's rooted in this deep desire to control and dominate. The abuser wants power over the victim. Reactive abuse, That's a defensive response. It comes from feeling powerless after prolonged mistreatment. So it's about who initiated it and why. Yes, absolutely. Also, it's about pattern versus incident. Abusers show a consistent pattern of harmful behavior. A victim's reactive behaviors, on the other hand, are often isolated incidents, these explosions in moments of extreme stress or fear. And the origin. Reactive abuse is a survival response triggered by emotional overwhelm. Real abuse, that happens without provocation. And I imagine accountability plays a role too, right? Oh, absolutely. That's the final key. Victims of reactive abuse often feel so much guilt and remorse for their reactions. True abusers, they typically don't take responsibility. In fact, they might even enjoy the control they exert.
Sophia, this is all so much to process. For someone who's living this or realizing they've been in this cycle, what are some of the first steps towards healing? It must be incredibly disorienting.
It really is, Isabella. The first and maybe hardest step is to simply acknowledge the abuse. Just recognize it, admit what's happening, and understand that your reactions, your outbursts, they don't make you the abuser. It's crucial to understand those dynamics of provocation and blame shifting.
That sounds like a huge hurdle to overcome mentally.
It is, it totally is. Once you start to get a handle on that, try to create emotional space. When you feel provoked, just try to create distance instead of reacting immediately. This could mean disengaging or using a technique called the gray rock method, basically becoming as boring and unresponsive as a gray rock, so the abuser doesn't get ammunition, you know? Oh, that makes sense. Like, don't give them anything to work with. And what about support? Yes, absolutely. Strengthen your support system. Connect with trusted friends, family, or support groups, people who believe you, who validate your experiences. That's invaluable. And also start practicing coping skills. Things like breathing exercises, grounding techniques, anything to help you stay centered and manage those intense stress responses. Beyond those initial steps, Isabella, professional support can make a huge difference. A trauma-informed therapist can help you process emotions, work through underlying trauma, and really rebuild your self-worth.
So, a therapist helps unpack all that confusion and self-doubt that builds up during the cycle?
They absolutely can. They'll give you key support, constantly reminding you about the difference between defending yourself and actual abuse. It's so easy to forget, and it's essential to reinforce that your reactions were just responses to ongoing harm. And listen, your safety is always the top priority. Domestic violence hotlines offer confidential help, and they can assist you with making a safety plan if you're ready for that.
That's truly important. And what about really rebuilding yourself after all this?
Yes, Isabella. Ultimately, it's about reclaiming your self-worth. Focus on rediscovering your confidence. Healing takes compassion and time, but you absolutely can get there. You're not defined by those tough moments or what you've been through.
Sophia, this conversation has truly offered such crucial insights into a really complex dynamic. Recognizing these patterns feels like the most powerful first step toward reclaiming your peace.
Absolutely, Isabella. And it's so vital to remember that healing isn't linear. With self-compassion, patience, and the right support, survivors can absolutely break free from these cycles and rediscover their strength. Self-compassion is key here. Being gentle with yourself, realizing your reactions were a survival mechanism, not a personal flaw, that's such a powerful truth to hold on to. You really do deserve that kindness. Precisely. We truly hope this episode has offered some real clarity and validation for anyone navigating these incredibly difficult waters. Your journey toward healing is valid, and it's something you absolutely deserve to pursue. It's been so important to discuss this. And for everyone listening, remember, you're not alone. There's support out there, and you've got this. Exactly. We really appreciate you joining us for this crucial discussion. All right, before we wrap things up, let's just quickly hit those main takeaways, okay? Remember, reactive abuse isn't true abuse. It's a trauma response. Understanding the intent and the power dynamics is absolutely key here. Your reactions are often just your body's way of trying to survive.
And honestly, Sophia, realizing that can be such a huge relief for so many people. If this conversation resonated with you or someone you care about, we genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.
Absolutely. And if you found today's episode helpful, please consider sharing it. Liking and subscribing really helps us get this important information out to a wider audience. You can also catch the video version on YouTube, often with calming visuals, or just listen wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right. You can connect with us on all our social channels, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And of course, all our resources are waiting for you at goodlifeguide.org. We're just so grateful for this amazing community and all your engagement.
Well, this has been such an important discussion. Thanks so much for being with us today, everyone.